In the first videos, we saw how to use context to create simple patterns using the pattern toggles along the x-axis. Just as a little reminder, if you go to Messages, x-axis, and Edit, you now have a little dialog box where you can enter numbers corresponding to notes, Control S, and then you go to Limit and increase the limit so that you have the same number of toggles along the bottom. If I now open up some of these toggles and give it some time, I have a little melody. We also saw in the third video how to use toggles not to send notes but to make connections. So I just click and scroll up to get C1. Now I have a little repeating pattern. Now you're probably wondering what these toggles along the y-axis are. These toggles are called the burst, and the burst is the subject for today's video. Now, if I just open them up, you can immediately see something about the burst toggles, which is that they all fire at the same time, simultaneously, at the very end of the cycle. Now, let me just edit them. If you go to Messages and then y-axis, you will see an identical set of options to x-axis, so I can add in some values. And again increase the limit. And now what I get is a big confusing chord at the end there. Now of course you can open and close these, so you can customize the chords if you want, which can be useful. But the beauty of the burst is that exactly which toggles fire. You can see when I hold the mouse over there, it tells me which toggles are going to fire next. You can vary which toggles are going to fire. And you do this by going to Properties and Burst. And there are a lot of options here, which we don't need to worry about now. Let's just stick with presets. There are 3 presets. We were on all already. If I go to Linear here and back, now what's going to happen is that each time the cycle ends, the next note is going to play. And when you get to the end, it's going to wrap back around. Remember, you can scroll over at any time to remind yourself where you are in the cycle. The other option, the third one, if you go to Burst, Presets, is Random. This one, obviously, is going to pick a random note along the burst every time. Okay, there's one little exception to the pattern or special case, which is this toggle here. It's called the last toggle, and as you can see, it's sort of on the burst, but it's also sort of on the pattern. That is, it's X and Y. It's a special case because it fires simultaneously to the burst toggles, but it's immune to the burst toggle settings. So whatever it is on all, random, or linear, the last toggle is always going to fire if it's open. Now, there are many ways in which you can use the burst. Using it to create notes like this is really just the beginning. If you want to use it to determine other events in context, you can do that using toggle connections. I have here 2 other contexts which I pre-programmed with little melodies, just as I've shown you before, and I want to connect them to happen after C1. So I only need 2 burst toggles for this, and all I need to do is just use toggle connect. So I'm just going to click and scroll up, so I have C3 and C2. And now I have that. I'm going to give this a little more time. And now I have this pattern followed randomly by either C3 or C2. If I want it to loop, I can then use the toggle connections here to go back to C1. If you remember, you can hold over the mouse just to tell which one's going to happen next, which is quite neat. Now I want this to play in a bit more of a structured way. Rather than at random, I want a structure to it. So I'm going to go back to Burst, Presets, and I'm going to select Linear. And then I want the pattern to be C3 3 times, followed by C2 once. So C2 will be the end of the pattern there. Oops. So here we have it. Oh, it's on the second stage already. Third. And then this is the last one. So you should get the picture of that. The burst is at the heart of the context sequencer because it lets you define events in context both logically and randomly. And there's no end to the generative and structured compositions that you can create using the techniques you've seen in this video.